Everybody,
You know who it is.
my name is Sanwoo, and by popular demand, I am going to start my tutorial series on the KO2 by Teenage Engineering. We are going to start from the very basics and try to understand this device, and then later on get into the details of how to make music with it and kind of look at the tips and tricks of what makes this special. So let's dive right in and start with the basic structure of this device, because in my opinion, that is most important to learn. And the structure of the device is as follows. The highest level in the hierarchy would be a project. A project basically is a song, and projects can be accessed by holding the main button and then pressing and holding buttons 1 through 9. So let's select project number 4, we hold it, and now it's selected. We can press play and we hear a certain song. And if we press main and hold number 3, we go to project number 3. I've got a different song on here. And so on and so forth. So we have a maximum of 9 different projects on the device. That means 9 different songs. And if you want to start a new project, you just navigate to any empty project and start over there. But for now, let's stay in this project that I've already created and see what a project is made of. So once we are within a project, the next level in the hierarchy would be the groups. A project can contain up to 4 groups, which we can access with A, B, C, and D. And each of these groups can contain up to 12 sounds, which are accessible on these buttons right here. So for example, here I've got a kick drum. Here I've got a snare drum and a hi-hat. And if I go to a different group, B for example, down here, I've got a bass. Here I will have some samples maybe. Yes. So you can see 4 groups with each up to 12 different sounds. And it's important to note that these 4 groups will stay there throughout the whole project, and that means all the sounds you want to use within a song must be contained in these 4 groups. So if you have filled up all the 12 pads on each of the groups, you can't add any more sounds to your project. It's also important to consider which sounds you put together in a group, because some actions on the device will affect the whole group. For example, like soloing. Now I'm going to solo the drum group. Or my melodic elements. And not only the solo functions affect the whole group, but also all of these fader functions will affect the groups as a whole. So for example, I'm going to turn these groups down in volume. Now I'm going to go into my drum group. If I assign this fader to the effects now and push it up, now all of my drums will be sending to the delay. So there is no simple way to have only the snare drum, for example, send to the delay, but exclude the kick and the hi-hat. So it's very important to consider which instruments or which sounds you put into a single group. Okay, next let's look at how patterns and scenes are different and what they are made of. Actually, let's turn these down and just focus on the drum group for now. So this is the drum group, and this is what the pattern sounds like for now. You can select a different pattern for the drum group by holding the group, and then it shows A22. That means group A is on pattern 22. I could now say, okay, group A, I wanted to use pattern 23. Now I'm on pattern 23, and I already know that this pattern is empty because I haven't created pattern 23 yet. If, however, now I turn the other groups up, you'll notice these groups are still playing the exact same thing. So this tells us that the patterns from group to group are independent of one another. These all still play exactly the same patterns they were playing before. I only changed the pattern that group A is playing. So let's quickly create this new pattern for the drums. Okay, we got a super simple pattern that is a little different from the pattern that I've had before. And now we're going to switch back and forth. So you can see we can easily switch patterns of a group. And again, let's turn up the other groups while we're doing that. All right, I think you get the point. Patterns belong to a group and they are independent from one another. You can have up to 99 patterns within a project, so that is quite a lot to work with and make different combinations. And speaking of combinations, that's where we go to the next level, because the combination of the patterns that we have in this moment, these can be saved into a scene. So, having selected pattern number 23 for group A, and group B is using pattern 21, and so on and so forth, we can save this combination, and this combination of patterns is saved within a scene. And the different scenes can be activated by holding the main button, and you can see it says S20. We are on scene 20 right now. Again, we could go to different scenes, switch back and forth by holding the main button, pressing left and right, or using the number buttons. So we're on scene 20 right now, and if I want to create a new scene, all I have to do is press Shift and hold the main button, and it will jump to scene 21. It will copy my existing scene, which means the combination of the patterns that I've just had, into a new scene, and now I could go about and arrange a different kind of pattern. But you'll notice that if I hold down group A, now it says 24 instead of 23. And that's because this makes it very easy to move on and create new patterns and different combinations of your sounds by copying the pattern over, but making it a new pattern so you don't destroy what's happening in the previous scene, if that makes sense. So you are copying a scene and all of the patterns, but you are copying them into new patterns and into a new scene, so whatever you are doing there will not affect what you have previously done. Yeah, and that's exactly what's so handy about this commit feature. Shift and main means that you can keep working from where you were at, but you don't have to be worried to destroy the patterns you have previously created. So very nice workflow this way. And yeah, it's important to note patterns per group. All the patterns together are saved into a scene and make up your whole sound, basically. And once you have created multiple scenes, you can play these scenes. And you can live move between these scenes. And therefore, once you have gathered enough scenes, you could line them up and create a complete song with them. And because I know this might all be a little bit confusing in the beginning, and in order to avoid frustration when making beats, I want to point out that when selecting a pattern 23 for example, you could technically be using this pattern in multiple scenes. So you're using the same pattern in multiple scenes. That means if you make a change to pattern number 23, this will change it throughout all the scenes where you are using pattern 23. So this is important to keep in mind if you don't want to lose your work. And that is why the commit function is so good, because it will always copy your existing patterns and scenes into new patterns and scenes that you can now work on without destroying your older patterns and scenes. All right, we got the bird's eye view done. We've looked at projects, scenes, groups, and patterns. Now let's have a quick look at the different sounds within a group. As I said, a lot of the actions, like the fader movements and the solos and such, affect the group as a whole, but still there are things we can do to the sounds themselves or to the pads themselves, and they still work independently of one another. For example, let's play this drum pattern. We are in pattern 23 right now. I can still, for example, erase just the hi-hat. If I press erase on this pad, it says track up there. So I'm erasing the track. So each of these instruments or each of these sounds within a group still lives on its own track within the sequencer. This is important to note. That means you can delete single elements easily out of the group if you want to do so. So now my pattern only consists of the kick and the snare. So to recap, the smallest element is a sound. These sounds all have their own tracks. All of the tracks of these 12 sounds here live within a group A, B, C, and D. So 4 groups of 12 sounds, each with their own track. These groups right here can use different patterns. All these patterns are independent from one another. For example, B, C, and D can keep the same pattern throughout, but A is changing patterns. This grouping of patterns is saved within a scene, and we can have up to 99 scenes within a project, which can make up our arrangement of the song. I hope you enjoyed the video, hope you learned something. If you want to learn more, feel free to contact me for private online lessons. Link down in the description or probably somewhere up there. Hope to see you in the next one. Until then, have a wonderful time. Peace.